Welcome into a Thursday, December 11th edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube, and as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. New DFO branded parlay up at Bet365 as well. We'll touch on that a little bit later. Tyler Yaremchuk, Carter Hutton with you. Huts, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'll tell you one thing: they ain't taking any of my parlays on there. That's for sure. It's glad we're on the board though. Hey, let's get some people out there. Daily face off. I love it.
What's on the TV today? I can't see behind your big head.
I put on because we're going to talk Mammoth, just something that stung them last night from the photo from the game. And you know what? Honestly, I just search X and I try to find NHL photos and see where the topic is going. Or I go Christmas spirit. You know, it just depends. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some questions in the inbox. Maybe some ideas for my backdrop each day.
I don't mind that. We're going to be joined by Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period and the DFO Rundown Insider Edition. He's going to swing by for our big segment today. A whole bunch of things to throw Pagnotta's way, but let's kick it off by talking a little bit about Utah and their struggles. A tough loss last night at the hands of the Florida Panthers, and it has a lot of people wondering, who are the Utah Mammoth? I mean, again, second straight year where they kind of come into the season is sort of like the sexy playoff pick for a lot of people. And a lot of people had the expectation, and heck, inside that organization, they had the expectation that this is the year they finally take that step forward. And here we are 32 games into the year, and they've fallen below 500 Huts in the last 10 games. Listen, it's not brutal by any stretch. They're 16th in goals against. They're 11th in goals for, although the 7-0 win a few weeks back definitely helps prop up those numbers. But it just feels like when their offense is good, their goaltending falls apart. When their goaltending is good, they don't get scoring. Like, they just can't get the parts of their game to speak the same language.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, I think, with this team is that youth movement they have. And they've been getting, some guys to score, and they've been getting offense generated. Nick Schmaltz was such a great story, and he's dropped off a ton. Clayton Keller obviously has been the leader of this group, and losing Logan Cooley's not going to help, right? That is a big spot to fill for a guy that was a U.S. hopeful and a guy that really moved the needle there. But what I do care about a lot when you look at these younger guys in this situation is I wonder how long they stay pat here, right? Like, you think about Utah Mammoth and coming to a new team. As an ownership group that's going to be active, going to be, they're trying to win, and they've stated that staying clear. Like, they came with Armstrong, right? Like, this is you bought the team, you got them. This isn't like they went and got their guy, right? So that is my biggest concern with this factor is I think the patience is going to be a little bit less when I think about ownership, because it's not his GM, because it's head coach that he got. A lot of players where, the Trev trade and some of these guys that have been brought in and signed, you think about Gunther's deal and Logan Cooley's deal, that's been under this ownership group. So they can take value in that and they can hold that accountable. But everybody else, you have to be worried if the results don't start to come here, because this is a team that's just in the meaty middle. When you look at those numbers, on top of a horrible power play, like, where are they going to get their offense from now? With Cooley out and Schmaltz in this rut, it's going to be tough for them moving forward.
Yeah, I like that point you kind of made that, Ryan Smith had all of this come with the team, and included in that is Andre Tourigny. It's been 4 years of him behind the bench. They haven't made the playoffs in any of those seasons. And I see we have a comment in the YouTube from Mechanicsville who says they're the same team they always are. They keep blaming that they're young, but they need a new coach to get to the next level. And you'd have to think at some point, Ryan Smith, who, again, is putting a lot of money into payroll, they're signing big extensions, he's upgrading that arena, and I know part of that's for the Jazz as well, but, he's putting a lot of money into this, saying, how long is he going to want to be attached to a head coach that he really had no part in hiring here? And he seems to be, a relatively hands-on owner, at least a pretty involved owner in terms of the day-to-day. There's probably a point here where we need to have that conversation about a coaching change, even though everyone in that organization speaks highly of Tourigny. Results matter. And maybe everyone going, oh, we love Tourigny, he's great for the group. Maybe everyone there just needs to be a bit more uncomfortable with a new coach.
Yeah, and that's sometimes what you do need to, right? Again, there is coaches that are just built to be assistant coaches, and then there's coaches that are built to be head coaches. And the big difference, I would say, is a guy that I played with, a great example would be Phil Housley. He was my assistant when I was in Nashville. Unbelievable assistant coach. Just one of the guys, right? A guy you could vent to, a guy. But then at times, Peter Laviolette would set the table with the way that he treated as a head coach. He was a little bit higher, had a little more hierarchy to it. But that being said, at times you have to find that right structure. And I think for Ryan Smith and ownership, you could take a long, hard look at the Buffalo Sabres and Terry Pegula, what he's gone through, right? Because he came into the league with unlimited resources, right? You have so much money you can buy, you can do whatever. And look where that's at, right? So you have to kind of find what you're comfortable with. And I think at times he was swayed by people in the hockey business to hire, who they thought. And then he's able to get Kevin Adams, a guy that was homegrown. It hasn't worked out for them, but buyer beware. You don't want to just start selling guys and buying new things, because money is one thing. This isn't baseball. You can't just buy a good hockey team. You got to kind of build it from the ground up.
Mechanicsville said Pete DeBoer. Go listen to his interview this morning on Morning Cup of Hockey with Colby and Lazo. It was really, really good. It was Pete DeBoer kind of in a mood, in a light that you've probably never seen him before. So go give that a listen from the guys at Morning Cup of Hockey. Last one on the Utah front, just because I got the numbers and you hinted at it. Nick Schmaltz, 7 goals in October, and we kept saying like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Like him and his agent were probably sitting there smiling every single night as they fell asleep. Well, since the calendar flipped to November, he's gone ice cold. Just 4 goals since November 1st and just 1 in his last 15 games. Hand up, Huts. We were talking about a $9 or $10 million AAV for him. Maybe that was a little premature.
Yeah, I think so too. That is timing is everything when it comes to contracts, when it comes to being a free agent. It's something that I've dealt with, throughout my career, the anxiety and the stress that goes on to it. And that's another case that I think sometimes people forget about during these whole runs, teams pushing for playoff. There is a lot of self-preservation that goes into this too. At the end of the day, there's 32 teams, there's 31 other teams that are watching you. You're trying to survive. So it comes a bit daunting, the anxiety and the stress levels of what goes on during a contract season. Yes, Nick Schmaltz has already made a ton of money, but he has to get going. So this is a factor I think that this team is weighing on when they have some younger bodies signed. Now you look at that bottom 6, like, is that a bottom 6 you see making in the playoffs? Do you see them putting up anything, having that depth to really make some noise come playoff time? I think that's a big concern for this team. And at some point, something's got to give here if they want to actually make a push to try to be a playoff hockey team.
Yeah, I agree. Again, we keep talking. They have all these assets, all this cap space, and I know they made the Sergachev deal 2 summers ago. They made the Peterka deal last year, but maybe they just got to keep getting aggressive in Utah. Part of that sort of mush in the Western Conference right now, because you can go as far down as St. Louis here. St. Louis at 29 points. Then you got Winnipeg, Seattle, Utah, San Jose, Edmonton, Chicago, and we're only at 32 points. Like, that's 3 points separating, a 7-team stretch in the West. So again, it's not too late for them to turn on the Jets, win 5 or 6 in a row, and all of a sudden we view them the same way we viewed them back in October. But speaking of trending down, that was the topic of Paul Paduti's latest piece over at dailyfaceoff.com. And the one headline name that got everybody buzzing, and we'll talk about JT Miller and Philip Forsberg and Jordan Binnington, but Paul includes Connor McDavid in the conversation. And I think as a headliner, a lot of people kind of said, like, what the hell are you talking about? This is a guy who is thoroughly in the mix for the scoring race, is probably going to be a finalist for the Hart Trophy again. But when you dig into the numbers, it's just important to remember Paul's doing this all relative to who Connor McDavid has been in the past and who he is right now. And when you look at it through that lens, like, this is a guy who's 2 years removed from a 153-point season. And Huts, as much as Connor McDavid at his, and I almost shudder even saying this, but Connor McDavid at his worst is a weird way to put it, he's still better than 99% of the league. But the numbers here speak for themselves. Like, his 5-on-5 production, his production in general, is the lowest it's been in his career.
Now I circle back to my self-preservation point. This is a guy that learned from experience too, right? I think, like, waiting in the weeds a little bit, managing your body, trying to set yourself up for playoff success. And these last 2 years, he's played a ton of hockey. That's going to the Stanley Cup final, winning a Conn Smythe. Then the next season, playing that, and then having the Four Nations Cup where he puts Canada on his back, and then going back to a Stanley Cup final. So yes, I do agree with, the numbers dropping. They don't lie in that sense, but I don't think this is a big concern. I think this is a maturity factor of understanding that, like, yes, I can go out and push and try to win the Hart every year and get all these singular accolades, which at the end of the day, he's talked about winning as number one. I think you're just seeing the maturity and the growth of him being like, I'm going to set myself up for success. And yes, it doesn't look great right now because of, where they're at with the Edmonton Oilers. But that being said, there is a strategic advantage. I think you look at Florida Panthers, what they've done the last few years, kind of limping into the playoffs and then making their noise when it matters most.
Yeah, the one thing with McDavid, and again, like, he's going to finish north of 100 points this year. He's probably going to be a 40-goal guy this season, and he's starting to heat up. But Pat, if you can pull up the numbers from Paduti again that show his shots on goal, like, that's the one that really stands out to me. And I think a lot of Oilers fans know this as well. Like, when Connor McDavid shoots the puck, offense is created, and not necessarily just always in his goal scoring, but it forces teams to respect his shot a little bit more. It creates other avenues for him to produce. So you go through, like, this year, his shots per 60 at 5-on-5, 6.94. Last year, 7.3. Year before that, 8.5. The 2 years before that, both north of 9. And then you look at him turning on the Jets, at least production wise, in the last few games. He's got 8 points in his last 3 games. 7 shots, 5 shots, 6 shots. On a per 60 basis, those are the 3 highest volume shot games of the season for McDavid, and he's got 8 points. Like, I really do think sometimes for McDavid, not that he's bored or anything like that. Like, again, that's a weird way to kind of frame it considering he's in the NHL, but like sometimes I feel like he's just in pass mode and he needs to get into that selfish, like, oh, it's okay for me to just rip 7 pucks tonight because I'm going to be in 7 great opportunities to score.
Yeah, and I think it's the opposite side too at times when they play with Connor McDavid too. It feels like I've seen this a lot throughout the NHL where a guy gets put on lines, and right now when you're not really finding your rhythm and you're not winning hockey games consistently, you're kind of bouncing guys around trying to see what patterns work. Where when you have superstars on your team, you're almost trying to feed them more and force plays. Where I think with McDavid, that's kind of a similar factor, right? He is a guy that can just turn a game on its ear at any point, and he's trying to feed other guys. He's trying to find chemistry. He's trying to get it going where at times less is more. And I think for the Edmonton Oilers, he's still in that superstar status. And I think when you look at that graph that Pagnotta had, it's going to work its way back up, right? It's just a matter of time. I think this is a feeling out process. And I know, like, I see someone in the chat talking about too much hockey. Too much hockey is a real thing. Like, I don't care what you say. There is a factor that, like, there is a lot that weighs into this. And this is also a guy that has the weight of the Olympics coming as well. And I think being strategic and setting yourself up for the war of attrition that's coming come playoff time it's going to be important for the Edmonton Oilers.
I like, again, use the word weight, and we'll close off the McDavid part of this, I guess, on this point of, like, this little uptick in his production the last few games lines up with him getting to play with Nugent Hopkins and Hyman again. Whereas early in the year, it was Savoy and it was all these Frederick and it was all these different pieces. And I think McDavid carries some of the weight of, like, okay, I have someone on my line who I need to try get going a little bit. And I think that leads to the overpassing and all that. Now that he's back comfortable with Nugent Hyman, I think he knows, like, hey, those guys are going to get theirs. They're going to produce. And also they're not going to feel like I'm holding on to the puck too much if I'm ripping off 5-6 shots a game. So I do think the line mate part of it is important with the McDavid thing too.
Yeah, I agree. Again, there is familiarity with these guys and where they're at. But that being said, it's just going to get in the rhythm. And I think the bigger problem is McDavid's lack of that. It's the defending and just predictability in their game where they need to find to push this team back into where they need to be.
All right, let's talk about some of the other players that were in Paul's list here. JT Miller, Jordan Binnington, Philip Forsberg, all in the conversation as well. But I want to start with Miller because I think he's the one, at least out of the forwards, where the concerns may be a bit more legit. And I like, just this is more just like a me personal thing, but like I'm always wary of the guys who are late bloomers to the offensive production side, because then I feel like the peak comes and then you shoot down from the peak just as fast as you got there. And Miller's a guy who it took him until his 5th or 6th year in the league to finally have his first point per game season, and then he explodes in Vancouver. It's 90s, it's hundreds, and now again, he's a fine player, but this drop off has been harsh. He's got 4 more years at $8 million, and like, if the Rangers acquired him to not only be the that leader off the ice and in the locker room, but if they acquired him to be a guy who can drive the offense for them, I think they're going to be disappointed over the next couple of years. I don't know if his trend ever fully ticks back up.
No, I agree too. And again, this is a guy that the other thing that I take into like account here when I'm talking about JT Miller is he kind of thrives off that physical play, right? And he's on the backside of it now, right? That's the other factor that comes into play is like the style of play that makes you successful at 32 is not the same style of play that's successful when he was 27, when he was 26, 28. Like that's a big difference in age and just durability to sustain the way that he needs to play. So I think that has to come into account. A guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder and he generates a lot of plays with his physicality. So it's going to be wear and tear. And I think he still is a good player. I think he still is productive, but to start thinking that we're going to get that JT Millers of the past, putting up 32, 37 and over 100 points in 23, 24. I just don't see that happening anymore. So I understand the curve is dropping down. I think it's just more of what he lacks in the execution. It's really going to be hard to make up with his physical play.
The next guy, Philip Forsberg, and I think we're going to both agree on this one because we both really like the player. I think the Philip Forsberg trend ticks right back up the second that you put him on a quality team with a skilled centerman on a power play where he's not as alone, we can call it. Like, this drop off is incredibly harsh. But if he gets traded somewhere else this summer, I would bet a lot of my own money on him being back north of 90 points next season in a new situation.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, now if you are looking at the lineup chart through the Nashville Predators, so you're going into a scouting report, right? And this is what goes on in the NHL locker room, right? You're sitting at a scouting report and you're like, Forsberg's playing on the wing between Holla and Marchessault, right? Ryan O'Reilly can't skate like he used to. Stamkos can't skate like he used to. Luka Langeliska's on your top line. Like, okay, so those are good players. So who are you focusing on? Where's your best matchup? Where are your best players being focused? It's on Philip Forsberg because there's no one really to deflect. When you look at a lot of other teams that have other options and other skill guys where they can hurt you, you look at their bottom six, no one's really going to hurt you. So all the focus is on Philip Forsberg. So think about the matchups that he's getting every single night. And I think that comes into account as you think about a weaker team. If you put him in a situation where there's a little more star power and you can spread him out a bit, what I'd like to watch now with Philip Forsberg is at the Olympics. When he goes to Team Sweden, right, when there is other superstars with him, watch him flourish, watch him do well, because he has a lot of talent. And again, he's a guy that can play physical. He can beat you offensively. He is a Swiss Army knife when it comes to his capability on the rink.
Yeah, again, maybe we'll start like a hashtag free Philip. Get Philip to a contender next season. But that's something for us to work on maybe over the summer. The last name on here, and we can be really quick with this, but Jordan Binnington was included from a goaltending perspective, Huts. And sometimes I like to sit there and think, what if Austin Matthews would have just scored that goal in overtime of the Four Nations faceoff and Binnington didn't make that glove save? And I know he made a bunch of other saves and he played good, but like, if Canada doesn't win that Four Nations, I think the conversation around this guy in Binnington is vastly, wildly different.
Yeah, and it's so fragile, right? You look at that. And I used to always think about this when we played. Like, we'd lose a game 3-2, and there's like one little play in a game that like changed it and you lose. Next thing you know, your meeting the next day is like, hey, this team sucks. You're not getting it done. Where you get a save here or there, a certain play, a bounce your way, you end up winning. I think Jordan Binnington may be one of the better goalies when it comes to being insulated, right? Timely saves, good decor. And again, you look back to his Stanley Cup run, he wasn't necessarily great at times. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. He was either really good or really bad in some of those series when he went on to win the Cup. That was with one of the best decors we've seen in years. So I do think between the ears, he is valuable and he can make a lot of saves. But that being said, I don't know if he's like, maybe he gets game one just based on, you know, the rapport he has with the team in his past. But that being said, his better days are behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like that cup run year. Everyone loves to jump. Oh, he's a clutch goalie. That was in 2019. That was, I mean, we're getting close to 7 years ago. And after that cup run, he went on to lose his next 9 playoff games. I just think sometimes the clutch goalie thing gets a little bit overblown, but I digress. I'll step off my soapbox on that one, and we'll get to our big segment for the day. It's our Insider Notebook with Dave Pagnotta. It's brought to you by Uber Eats. David Pagnotta from the Fourth Period and the DFO Rundown Insider Edition. And let's kick things off with one of the things you and Irv talked about. I saw the clip going around the other day, but, you know, we're also focused Detroit for Quinn Hughes and, New Jersey for Quinn Hughes. He's going to play with his brothers, but like, surely if Quinn Hughes is made available, there's going to be other teams in the conversation. It's not just going to be a 2-horse race, right?
No, definitely not. This is going to be several teams, almost the entire league is going to basically just have an idea as to whether or not they have a shot at getting this guy. Now, there's all the talk of the preference from Vancouver's perspective is to send him east, and I think that would be his preference if he's set on moving, which I don't think is the case yet. But we've heard Philly, we've heard I mentioned all week, I expect the Rangers to have to take a swing at this at some point. I believe the Washington Capitals, Carolina Hurricanes, there are other teams as well that are in the mix that have varying degrees of interest, obviously in Quinn Hughes, but I still don't think we're at the point where the Vancouver Canucks are actively trying to move him. I think they're going to continue to have discussions and have an open line, but unless somebody blows out of the water for either Quinn Hughes or any of their other assets that are available, I think it's kind of a holding pattern. I guess with everything going on and all the talk, I wouldn't be shocked if I see something this season. But right now, anyway, in the immediate, I'd be a little bit surprised.
So, Dave, when we think about the NHL right now and where teams are at, the only really two teams I think that are, making that statement are Colorado and Dallas, that they have potential to win the Stanley Cup. And now Dallas losing Tyler Seguin, they found some money in the LTIR. What is the plan for Dallas moving forward to try to fill that gap?
This is a team that's not afraid to be aggressive. Jim Nill is afraid to do that. He's not afraid to make moves early. We saw last season bringing in Granlund and Ceci on February 1st, not afraid to make those types of moves well in advance of the trade deadline. And we've got, quasi 2 deadlines here with pre-Olympics and then the actual trade deadline itself on March 6th. But looking at this club, and you see right there the depth of this team, they're not afraid to utilize the money in order to make them that much deeper. And they've got full reign from owner spend whatever they need. Right now, they just need to determine whether or not Tyler Seguin realistically will be available in the playoffs or not. And if he's not, then they can utilize his full $9.85 million cap hit, in addition to the 3+ they've got now, in order to fill ends they feel are necessary. We know this is a team that wants and has interest in Rasmus Anderson. I believe there's interest in Blake Coleman. I've been mentioning this before, as well as Nazem Kadri. Although I think that's a much more complicated type of move with his contract and the fact that the Flames aren't really eager to move him by any stretch. But I think addressing 2 areas of this club is something that Jim Nill is going to look to do. I don't get the sense anything's imminent right now. And they're still, as I mentioned, trying to figure out what to do with Seguin as a realistic timeline. But if it's the full pop, I expect them to bring in a defenseman, to bring in somebody up front that has some physicality in their game and has some finish as well. Secondary score, add to the secondary scoring. So whether on the back end, you're going to look at other pieces that are potentially available on expiring deals. Jamie Alexiak in Seattle, got to see what happens with them, and they're going to. The plan, it seems like, is to utilize that Olympic break to talk to a lot of their free agents. The Kraken have a lot of them. So they may wait until they get the sense there, until the bottom completely falls out. But I think that, potential another target for them if Anderson isn't available. But this is a long-winded answer for me to tell you that the Dallas Stars, I fully expect to be very, very active this year.
Well, that's why we come to you. We want the answers. And I got another one in the Central for you. Like obviously Colorado, Dallas. Then you look at Minnesota. They don't seem like they're letting off the gas by any means. Now, St. Louis was that playoff team last year. And I feel like they're a team that's on the outside. They just signed Fabry and Dubé Dylan Dubé. I don't know how to pronounce his name there. Over from the KHL. Is this like the sign that they're going to start moving guys out? Like, because now they've added a few pieces. And this is a team that I think a lot of people are waiting for. Like, what are they?
Yeah. They've got, they're battling a lot of injuries as well, but this is a team that's trying to shore up some depth pieces because they've got, it's no secret they're open for business. And usual suspects, we know about Braden Shen, we know about Justin Falk, those guys that have a year left on their contract, they've got team no trade each. So there's some juggling that can be done, there. But as well, they have guys on expiring contracts that are looking at, whether it's Oscar Sundqvist. They've got other pieces as well that are, I think, Joseph's other. They've got some pieces on expiring deals, some depth pieces that they're willing to listen on, along with guys that have term on their contract. Kyrou has certainly been a popular one. He's injured right now. He's week to week. But this is a team that's looking to shore things up depth-wise because of the anticipation, at least around the league, that they're going to be aggressive. They're going to move out some bodies. The season certainly hasn't gone the way they anticipated. Guys haven't played up to their expectations. You guys were talking about Jordan Binnington earlier. They've expected a little bit more out of their goaltending overall this season. It's been kind of up and down, but also a reflection of the guys in front of them. So I expect them to be aggressive. I expect them to be busy this season. And guys like Fabry, they called up recently. There are some of these pieces to supplement some of the guys that are either hurt or just aren't to expectations. But this is going to be a team that I still believe will be aggressive on the phone lines. Just a matter of the action kicking in. We're not there yet, but we will see.
It's a heavy Central Division edition of the Insider Notebook on the show, but the Winnipeg Jets I think are really interesting too. Like they're tied 29 points, same spot as the St. Louis Blues. I know there's games in hand and whatnot. We're early in the season, but we're talking about St. Louis at 29 points being a seller. Are we talking about Winnipeg at 29 points, maybe wanting to get a bit more aggressive? Like does Kevin Cheveldayoff maybe want to try fix some of these issues himself?
Yeah, one of the big issues is secondary scoring, and they've loaded it up. They don't separate Scheifele, Connor, that combo. Iafallo isn't a first line winger, and Cole Perfetti. They're hoping that he can get things going a little bit, maybe, and then eventually move him up in the lineup. But losing Nick Ehlers has obviously been a big hole for them. It's created a hole. It's created a additional offense within this group, especially in the top six. They've had some guys that have been contributing, not at the consistent level that they'd like. And yes, their skid recently is a reflection of Connor lineup. He's back at practice, and hopefully he comes back within the timeline they anticipate, which is later. And that'll help, certainly. But it sounds like Chevy's out there on offense. And I wouldn't be surprised. They've got a little bit of cap space. They've a decent amount of cap space, rather, to play with. So there's flexibility. This is still, it projects itself as a legitimate contender. They feel their window is still open, and they want to add to that. And they weren't able to replace Ehlers. The offense that he brings offseason, they're looking now to see if they can do that and help spread. Maybe it's on the second line, already a little bit of assistance, and kind of go from there. But this team that I expect to add to be a full playoff team and want to run, they're going to look to add as well. And we still know we keep it in the Central. Minnesota still always looking for a secondary scoring piece as well.
Dave, as always, appreciate your time. You can read them on the fourth period. You can find them on our YouTube every Wednesday with the DFO Rundown Insider Edition. Thanks for popping on.
Awesome, boys. See ya.
Let's get to, it's a busy night, actually. 13 games on tap. Let's do a little What Are You Craving for our friends at Uber Eats. Before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Huts, 13 games, like I said. Which one are you watching tonight?
I am going to be watching the Montreal Canadiens and the Pittsburgh Penguins. As announced earlier before we came on air, Fowler gets his first start for the Habs. I feel like all of Montreal, every Habs fan, could be the future, and this might be a huge, huge start to a great goalie's career.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a believer in these kind of signs or omens, but the last time the Montreal Canadiens started a rookie goalie in his NHL debut against the Pittsburgh Penguins, it was Carey Price. He made his NHL debut against Sid and the Pens back in the day as well. So Habs fans are certainly hoping that has some symmetry.
How crazy is it Crosby still around to do both starts, right? He was there against Carey, and now he's there against Fowler. It just shows you the durability and how good he's been every single year.
Yeah, I'm eyeing up that Stars Wild game, by the way. Two teams, top dogs, or close to it in the Central Division. That should be an awesome game out in Minneapolis tonight. Let's get to our daily Faceoff inbox question. Hashtag askDFO. There's a couple interesting ones here. Veps has said, what do you think the cost is for a guy like Hughes? We've talked about that a little bit, and I don't think Vancouver's necessarily even at that point. Like, we've heard conflicting information on like what they could be looking for in a Quinn Hughes deal. For me, I think they need to be pretty heavy futures based on this one. I saw there was a Darren Dreger report that was like, oh, Vancouver wants to stay competitive this season. And I think if Vancouver's priority when trading Quinn Hughes is to stay competitive this season, Jesus, they're dead last HL. There's no saving this season. Like, that's the mistake they'll make if they end up moving Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, like just looking at their lineup that they iced last night, it felt like there was no hope in them having a chance. And again, I think there needs to be some sort of return that like helps them in the future, right? I guess maybe last year I think about even Colorado getting the rental and Brock Nelson, giving up Cal Ritchie, who's like a sure thing, who's a guy that's going to make the jump and going to be a good player for a long time. There needs to be a few pieces like that are good right away. I don't want a late 20s, early 30s good NHLer right now. I think there's no business in even walking that line. Maybe if you need a roster, I would rather give that roster spot to an American League player. You know, Abbotsford had a lot of success. They won a Calder Cup. There's kids there that are ready to get some NHL exposure. Yeah. So I would prioritize that. There's got to be some big prospects coming back, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, and I know the question was kind of about the Red Wings there, like Axel Sandin Pellikka, a 20-year-old already playing in the NHL, first round pick. Like, that's a guy I look at. Nate Danielson, who they recalled. I know he's only got 2 goals in 16 games, but that's a first round pick who's only 21 years old as well. So I'd be looking at guys like that, early 20s, ready to step into the NHL. But it needs to be futures based. If I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan, that's what I'm hoping for. Let's get to our daily bets for Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Oh, I'm the only one with a check mark, Pat. What happened to you? Reinhart and Zibanejad, did either one of them hit?
No, I mean, the Rangers got shut out, so nothing for Zibanejad. And I picked the wrong Sam in the Florida game. I think Bennett had like 3 points, 2 goals, and Reinhart just nothing on the board. But I'm hoping for Hutz's sake. I mean, Calgary, it's unfortunate they didn't win for you, but I hope that, Detroit doesn't get the split in Alberta tonight.
I know. That was a tough one. I think I said Detroit money line. We might have to go back and watch the video. I think you typed that out wrong, buddy. I don't know. There's no way I would have picked Calgary last night.
Yeah, you nailed the Florida one, though. I nailed the over between Florida and Utah. Got the late goal from the Panthers in that one. I think it was Lundell who got the winner with under a minute to go. So a big win for Florida last night. Tonight, I'm going with a little 2-game parlay for my pick. I'm starting with the over between the Red Wings and the Oilers. Over the last 10 games in the NHL, these are the 3rd and 4th best offenses in the league. So this number at 6.5, with Detroit on the second of a back-to-back, with Edmonton playing at home where they score a lot more than when they're on the road. Love that over. And give me the Colorado Avalanche on the puck line. Still no Sergei Bobrovsky, I believe, for the Panthers. So they're going to be going with potentially Tarasov tonight in this one. Either way, I like this Colorado number. -1.5 pushes the parlay up to 294. Pat, your pick for tonight.
I'm going, and it's gone. I'm going with the Morgan Geekie anytime goal tonight. I mean, he's got 4 in his last 5. He's got 22 on the season. He's second behind Nathan McKinnon and Boston playing Jets tonight, who, they've kind of had some struggling goaltending as of late. So, I mean, Morgan Geekie to get one tonight at +165. Looking pretty juicy. What about you, Hutz?
Morgan Geekie goal. I like that. I heard him talking about his wood sticks as a kid. I thought that was a good little story he told online. I'm going with tonight. I'm taking the under in the Capitals Kane game. We're going to see Bussy. The line's actually moved to 6.5, but it's Bussy versus Thompson. So I like under 6.5. And then I'm taking the Ottawa money line against Columbus. It feels like more than ever right now. It feels like a must win for the Ottawa Senators. And I think Brady Tkachuk and just this team need to find a way to win. So I'm taking the Sens money line as a desperate team needs 2 points.
Just a reminder, if you head to Bet365, go to the NHL tab, you can find our daily Faceoff parlay. Sid still got it. That's what I'm going with tonight. It's a Penguins money line and a Sidney Crosby goal. So find the odds at Bet365. Let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time. And this is funny, Huts, because we joked about your one goalie fight, your one trip to the box. But last night, in that Detroit-Calgary game, not 2 teams you'd think would get overly spicy, but Cam Talbot, who also does have one career fight, by the way, against Mike Smith back when he was a Calgary Flame. But Talbot was getting in the mix in a scrum, and look at Devin Cooley just coming out to the red line. Nothing comes of it, but Cooley was about that action. He was ready to go.
Yeah, I got to correct you there, John Gibson, on that one. He came flying out. The veteran guy, I don't know if he's been in there, but I like how Cooley's out at the line. He's not shy of it. I like to see him go. You know what I hate is when they hold him back. Like, we get this opportunity. You want to sell the game, that'll sell the game, a goalie fight. We got to, I like Cooley, the youngster. He would have been out there. I would have loved to hear his post-game comments about what went on. He always talks about some unique things in his post-game pressers.
Yeah, Talbot getting the start tonight, obviously, for the Red Wings in his return to Edmonton. That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. Tomorrow, we got former NHLer Tyler Johnson joining the show. We're going to talk John Cooper and a whole bunch of other stuff with Tyler, so excited for that one. Enjoy your Thursday. Enjoy a loaded up NHL slate, everybody, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.